Hi, fifth graders. It's Monday, November 2nd, and I will read the next section of Hatchet to you. We are on chapter 5. His eyes snapped open, hammered open, and there were these things about himself that he knew instantly. He was unbelievably, viciously thirsty. His mouth was dry and tasted foul and sticky. His lips were cracked and felt as if they were bleeding, and if he did not drink some water soon, he felt that he would wither up and die. Lots of water, all the water he could find. He knew the thirst and felt the burn on his face. It was mid-afternoon, and the sun had come over him and cooked him while he slept, and his face was on fire, would blister, would peel, which did not help the thirst. It made it much worse. He stood, using the tree to pull himself up because there was still some pain and much stiffness, and he looked down at the lake. It was water, but he did not know if he could drink it. Nobody had ever told him if you could or could not drink lakes. There was also the thought of the pilot, down in the blue with the plane strapped in. Awful, he thought. But the lake was blue and wet-looking, and his mouth and throat raged with the thirst, and he did not know where there might be another form of water he could drink. Besides, he had probably swallowed a ton of it while he was swimming out of the plane and getting to shore. In the movies, they always showed the hero finding a clear spring with pure, sweet water to drink, but in the movies, they didn't have plane wrecks and swollen foreheads and aching bodies and thirst that tore at the hero until he couldn't think. Brian took small steps down the bank to the lake. Along the edge there were thick grasses, and the water looked a little murky, and there were small things swimming in the water, small bugs. But there was a log extending about 20 feet out into the water of the lake, a beaver drop from some time before with old limbs sticking up, almost like handles. He balanced on the log, holding himself up with the limbs and teetering out past the weeds and the murky water. When he was out where the water was clear and he could see no bugs swimming, he kneeled on the log to drink. A sip, he thought, still worrying about the lake water. I will just take a sip. But when he brought a cupped hand to his mouth and felt the cold lake water trickle past his cracked lips and over his tongue, he could not stop. He had never, not even on long bike trips in the hot summer, been this thirsty. It was as if the water were more than water, as if the water had become all of life and he could not stop. He stooped and put his mouth to the lake and drank, pulling it deep and swallowing great gulps of it. He drank until his stomach was swollen, until he nearly fell off the log with it. Then he rose and stagger-tripped his way back to the bank, where he was immediately sick and threw up most of the water. But the thirst was gone, and the water seemed to reduce the pain in his head as well, although the sunburn was still cooked his face. So, he almost jumped with the word, spoken aloud. It seemed so out of place, the sound. He tried it again. So here I am. And there it is, he thought. For the first time since the crash, his mind started to work again. His brain triggered and he began thinking, here I am. And where is that? Where am I? He pulled himself once more up the bank to the tall tree without branches and sat again with his back against the rough bark. It was hot now, but the sun was high and to his rear, and he sat in the shade of the tree in relative comfort. There were things to sort out. Here I am, and that is nowhere. With his mind opened and thoughts happening, it all tried to come in with a rush. All of what had occurred, and he could not take it. The whole thing turned into a confused jumble that made no sense. So he fought it down and tried to take one thing at a time. He had been flying north to visit his father for a couple of months in the summer, and the pilot had had a heart attack and had died. and the plane had crashed somewhere in the Canadian North Woods, but he did not know how far they had flown, or in what direction, or where he was. Slow down, he thought, slow down more. My name is Brian Robeson, and I am 13 years old, and I am alone in the North Woods of Canada. All right, he thought, that's simple enough. I was flying to visit my father, and the plane crashed and sank in a lake. There, keep it that way. Short thoughts. I do not know where I am, which doesn't mean much. More to the point. They do not know where I am. They meaning anybody who might be wanting to look for me. The searchers. They would look for him, look for the plane. His father and mother would be frantic. They would tear the world apart to find him. Brian had seen searches on the news, seen movies about lost planes. When a plane went down, they mounted extensive searches, and almost always they found the plane within a day or two. Pilots all filed flight plans, a detailed plan for where and when they were going to fly, with all the courses explained. They would come, they would look for him. The searchers would get government planes and cover both sides of the flight plan filed by the pilot and search until they found him. Maybe even today. They might come today. This was the second day after the crash. No, Brian frowned. Was it the first day or the second day? They had gone down in the afternoon, and he had spent the whole night out cold, so this was the first real day. But they could still come today. They would have started the search immediately when Brian's plane did not arrive. We'll stop there for today, and we'll keep reading tomorrow.